Today we'll be creating a very simple creator-defined statement, which after a certain amount of dialogue will pop up this text button. And when we click on it, it's going to continue with a new dialogue. And then it's also very customizable, where we can also change the name of the label very easily. This is taken from Elysium, where they have the dialogue, and then sometimes they get this continue sort of button. And when they click on it, new dialogue gets added. And then they also have this end button, which when you click, it removes the dialogue, essentially. So the setup for this is quite simple. We have the script RPI file, which comes with any new Ren'Py project. And it just contains a simple dialogue scene. And then we have two new scripts that I created. The first one called 01 progress underscore statement, and then 01 progress underscore screen. And as the name suggests on both files, the screen one will contain the screen code, and then the statement will contain the statement code. The reason we do this is because Ren'Py recommends us to have a separate file for the creation of the statement, or the creator-defined statement as it's called, because you can't use the statement in the same file where you create it. And because we don't want to have any issues, and we want this to be handled properly, they recommend to use a prefix of 01, because this essentially pushes the scripts to the top. And the way the Ren'Py script order initialization works is that it goes from top to bottom. So these files, because they're at the top, are going to be run first, and we'll create the statement. And then if we use it in the script, for example, which is what we're going to do, by the time it gets to the script and it runs, we won't have any problem, and we can just call the statement we created. So that's something, important to remember. Also, before we get started with writing, I just want to quickly go over how this is going to work, how I'm imagining the statement to work. So I want to have this statement called progress, which you can call anywhere. What this expects is just a string, which we can call whatever. And this string is going to be displayed in the middle of the screen, and it's going to be a button which you can click. And the game, when you call this, will wait here before continuing. So if there's dialogue afterwards, to only display this first. And then when you click on the button that's on the middle of the screen, then we move on to this. So that's pretty, a simple statement. And it's also how it works in Elysium. So with that said, let's get started. When creating your own creator-defined statements, they have to be in the Python early block. And you need two functions to make this work. The first one will be a function to parse the text, I guess, or the line. We can just call this parse progress statement, and then call the argument lex for lexer. Now we're going to create a new variable that's going to hold the string. And another important thing to remember is once you enter this function, the progress statement, this part has already been processed. So when you try to use the lex to get any information about the line, it will always give you everything after the progress. For us, what we want is to get the rest of the line after the progress, which is very simple. You can just assign it to a new variable, which is going to call progress text. And to get it, we could just call lex rest. And this will give us the rest of the line. Now, we have the rest of the line continue, but we want to have some sort of like an error check. So if someone writes like this, we want to give it an error. So because this is not expected behavior we want. And to do that, we can call expect all. Oh, sorry. We have to add the lex at the front. And this will give us an error if, again, if we add anything more after the continue. So let's remove this so we don't have any errors. And lastly, this function expects us to return the string we processed, which is just progress text. Now we're going to create the next, I guess, final function, which is the execute, which is going to run any code that we want out of the parsed string we made. And the argument we're going to call just parsed progress. Here, it's very simple. We just want to call ren'py.call screen. And the reason we want to use call screen is because this actually blocks input and expects this screen which we were gonna create to actually return something. And it's not gonna move on until we return that, whatever we want to return. And yeah, of course here we have to call our screen name. I'm just gonna call progress. And then we're gonna send in our parsed statement. Now, we have not created this, so this is gonna give us an error, so we can just comment this out. But as you can see, it's very simple because we just take the string which we get from here, we pass it here and along to the screen. Yeah. I just want to take a moment to stop and just like have, I guess, fun fact moment. This will only work if it's a like simple string. So what I mean by that is like this is a simple string and like a literal string, I guess that's what it's called. And but if you have something more complex, like something like this, then you won't be able to just send this in. What you need to do is instead convert the string into a Python expression that can actually handle the dynamic string, I suppose, because this is considered more of a dynamic string. And the way you do that is by first we need a new variable to hold the value, and we're going to call ren'py.python.py evaluate, Python evaluate, and then here we're going to send in the parsed text, and then once we do that, that's where we can send the progress text in. So again, you only need to do this if you want to have some like more dynamic strings, but for our case, we don't need it, so we can just we can just send the parsed text right away. And of course, let's uncomment it because we don't have the screen yet. So before we continue with the final part of this, we could just go to the progress screen and just, write it out, which is very simple. So let's create the screen and call it progress. And then the argument is going to be name. As we said, we want just the text button in the middle of the screen. So we're just going to call text button and then add the name. It's going to be display, which is name. Then we're going to make it into a block. And then here we're going to add some more, like edit the style of the text button. So first of all, we want the X aligned to be 0, 1 and the Y aligned to be 0, 0, 5. We want to apply a custom style to this text button, which we're going to call progress text button. And the action so basically when we click on the text button, we want to just return. Now we're going to create a style for it, which we referencing here. The size of the text will be 40. It's going to be bold. Color will be white. The hover color will be sort of like an orange color. And then we're going to add, of course, an outline to it with a width of 2. And then it's going to be a black outline. So now the screen progress is done. And something also I want to mention is right now we only are sending in the parsed string as a name, but you can also like throw in a action which is gonna be override this part. So if you want to have some custom, like I don't know, a jump or something instead of a return, you can like make it however you like. But in my case, I wanted to keep it simple and just do a return. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to add that. Now our progress screen is done. So we can go back to our execute progress statement and just uncomment this and then remove the pass. And we're gonna add our final code, which is registering the statement. So for this, we can just call Ren'Py.register statement. Then we're gonna make a new line so it's easier to read. So the name of it is gonna be progress. Then we're gonna link our parse function here, and then our execute. There we go. Perfect. So now we can just go to our script because the statement is basically implemented now. And you could just call progress, and then we're gonna add the name for it, continue. Then we can add some new dialogue, and then do the same with an end, final end. I'm gonna run the project. Let's start. We click a few times, and we get the progress text button. And it has the hover color as we added it, and the outline, and it's bold. So yeah, the game now is stuck until we click this text button. It continues with the dialogue a few times, and then it goes to the final end. And when you click that, it gets you back to the main menu because we basically return. So yeah, that was a tutorial on how to do this, like a very simple creator-defined statement. I hope you enjoyed it and are able to get something out of it. Thanks for watching, and I see you guys on the next one.